Okay, it's now a couple minutes past the hour, and we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jeff Cohen. I'm the Director of Business Development at Seller Labs. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I know that the Amazon policy update has created quite a lot of questions, and today we seek to
Yeah, I'm
provide a
sorry.
little bit of insight about those and our
Can you
answers.
hear
So,
that?
presenting today is going to be Brandon Checketts and Paul Johnson. They are the co-founders of Seller Labs, and I'm going to now pass the microphone over to them. If you have any questions,
Here,
please post those questions in your webinar control panel, and we will
my
address them
Zoom's not working.
at the end of the chat. Thanks.
Well, great. I'll go ahead and get started then. This is Brandon Checketts. I'm one of the founders of Seller Labs. We're excited to talk to you today about this. We wanted to go ahead and be pretty forthright and upfront about this so that our customers and potential customers sort of know about our feelings and our attitudes on it. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. If you're in the webinar, I presume you know a little bit about what we're talking about already. So over the weekend, Amazon sort of added a couple things to this prohibited sellers activities and actions page. This is a page that's found within Seller Central. There's also a version of it that's publicly available. If you just Google Amazon prohibited seller activities, there's a public version of it that hasn't been updated with the new copy yet, but we presume probably will. So we looked through this very carefully through the exact changes that were made, and this sort of shows highlighted in yellow here the couple of specific changes that we noticed. The first one there in
See you.
highlighted in yellow under the misuse of ratings, feedback, and reviews, it says
It sounds kind of
you may
low.
not intentionally manipulate your product's rankings, including by offering an
Continue.
excessive number of free or discounted products in exchange for a review. The second part of that was under the misuse of sales rank. They added this entire paragraph here that says the bestseller rank feature allows buyers to evaluate the popularity of your products. You may not solicit or knowingly accept fake or fraudulent orders. This includes placing orders of your own products. You may not provide compensation to buyers for purchasing your products or provide claim codes to buyers for the purpose of inflating sales rank. In addition, you may not make claims regarding a product's bestseller rank in the product detail page information, including the title and description. So that's a couple of the significant things that were changed on that. There was a couple other very, very minor things changed and a couple bullet points added on having multiple Seller Central accounts. But for the purposes of our discussion today, that's what we're going to be talking about. So what we wanted to point out is I've personally been involved with Amazon in a highly technical nature, like using their APIs and using them as a service provider for many, many years, probably about 10 years. And I've seen them do stuff similar to this a couple times in the past. What you need to understand about Amazon is they're a very technology-focused company, and much of their work cycle revolves around the software development process. So I put up in the top right corner of the screen here. So I just Googled software development lifecycle, and this is one of the things that came up. But you can sort of see like how software development works. And typically, Amazon is working in they're planning their work out like 3 to 6 to 9 months in advance. In fact, I had a conversation earlier this week with another technical person at Amazon, completely unrelated to our discussion here, but he was planning out his work for Q1 and Q2 of 2016 and trying to figure out what they were able to get done and trying to sort of make those requirements for what they're planning in the next few months. So I think what we've seen in this case is that Amazon has noticed that there's some problem, some kind of change they want to see, and what they've done is change the policies where they need to make policy changes. And then that gives them the ability over the next few months as they're sort of writing out the specific requirements that their developers are going to be writing programs for. They're going to be writing technology to combat these things. Amazon largely believes in like addressing things from a systematic perspective instead of a one-off perspective wherever possible. So they really want to implement systems and technology that prevents the kind of problems that makes the software behave how they want to. But they need sort of samples and they need to figure out what exactly to tell our developers to do. So what I think we're going to see over the next month or two, as they've just changed the policy, I think we're going to find the seller performance people who are a little extra sensitive to these kind of things are looking for examples to give their developers for like things that they want to avoid, to have sellers avoid. So they've given us, in their policies, are sort of telling us like what they want to avoid at a very sort of high level. I think we're going to see some enforcement of those policies over the next few months as they sort of hammer out what exactly some of those mean. And we'll probably see some of those in the, people getting policy violations and things like that, as Amazon sort of nails down what exactly they're trying to avoid or change. And then a few months from now, I expect their developers will actually begin working on developing and programming these kind of things, and another little while for them to release the code. So I think they're trying to tackle this at a systems perspective, but in the short term, they need some examples and some data in order to give their developers to know how to use it and what to tell them to develop.
So let's look at kind of the way Amazon typically enforces their policies. Having dealt with Amazon for a long time and dealing with a lot of sellers, even speaking with people in both seller support and seller performance, and having a lot of the relationships, we're kind of familiar with the way this typically works. So first of all, it should be noted that there's a couple of different departments that communicate to you if you're a seller in Amazon. There's your seller support department, which are the people that you typically, if you ask a question in Amazon, they're going to be the ones that give you that answer. They're the ones that are on the forums answering things. But then there's this other department called seller performance, and they're not as transparent, and they're not as easy to get in touch with unless you've had a policy violation, and then they'll reach out to you and give you a warning or a policy violation of some sort. They don't have a phone number. You can't call them up, whereas you can with seller support. So what happens if you are found in violation is Amazon seller performance reaches out to you, and they give you a warning, or they even as far as suspend your account or whatever happens. So right now we have this kind of vague communication from Amazon. We don't really know exactly what they mean by everything, but we can kind of think like Amazon, reach out to the contact at Amazon, and try to understand. But what really is going to happen is we're going to start seeing people getting policy violations from Amazon for using, manipulative type techniques and things like that. And when those policy violations start to come out, we'll be able to really tell what Amazon wants to enforce and what doesn't. But what we've done is really try to think like Amazon, look at all of our experience in the past with Amazon, and understand what their intentions would be and what we would do if we were at Amazon, and how we can work better to make sure that we're not doing things in a manipulative way. And so that's what we're going to do, is walk you guys through that. I'd also really like to point out that we do have a lot of great contacts at Amazon, and if you do get a policy violation or anything like that, we would really like to help you with those things. Hopefully the techniques and the things that we're proposing today will keep everybody's account on the up and up, and there shouldn't be any issues. But if for whatever reason, if you've had something in the past, or if you've done some things that might be considered manipulative by Amazon and they do give you a policy violation, reach out to our support team. We'll try to get you in touch with the right person and work with Amazon on your behalf. So first of all, by reading the new update in the prohibited sellers, the word that really struck out to us, and really what we want to kind of base the webinar on today, is manipulation. And Amazon does not want their platform to be manipulated. They want to make sure that the platform remains trustworthy and honest, and that buyers are getting the best experience. And so our whole goal with this presentation is really to help you avoid anything that could be considered manipulative from Amazon's viewpoint. So the part that's kind of easy to understand in these new updates, and it's fairly straightforward, is a couple of things in the sales rank section. They talk about avoiding false claims in your titles and in your descriptions, and that also goes for bullet points as well, even though it's not explicitly stated. But what they're basically saying is you should not include any types of statements regarding your product rank or sales rank or reviews or anything in your titles or descriptions or bullet points. So if you have something that's like the #1 rated, XYZ on Amazon, that's something that you want to avoid and remove that type of language from your listings. And also, it goes without saying, but apparently people have been engaging in practices where they were giving products away, or not necessarily giving products away, but actually having people purchase their products on Amazon and then the buyers would actually go and cancel orders, and so we call this kind of like a fake order. And what happens is, like, so a buyer buys your product, it bumps the sales rank, and then the buyer will go in and cancel the order on Amazon.com, so you don't have to ship it, but that gives you that sales rank boost. And so that's now, as it should be, officially against Amazon's terms of service and their prohibited seller activities. So the next thing that we want to look at is review manipulation. And in review manipulation, Amazon explicitly states that they do not want people trying to manipulate their products' rankings by offering excessive discounts and reviews in exchange for review. And what we believe they're trying to say here is they don't want people to try to take a product that has a low star rating and manipulate it into a high star rated product and making it seem better than it is, and kind of fraudulently boosting that item's ranking. So I think this idea warrants an example. So let's say you have a product that gets 1, 2, or 3-star reviews from your organic sales on Amazon, and it's just consistently getting these low reviews, and you want to do something to improve its ranking. Some merchants will actually go and use a review club to offer additional samples at a discounted price, and in those review clubs and in those review services, they'll oftentimes allow you to actually approve the reviewer that's getting your product. And what happens is, when people go to look at who they want to give their samples to, they usually only choose reviewers that leave 4- and 5-star reviews, thus kind of naturally leaving out anybody that's going to leave a negative review. And so all the reviewers are very reluctant to leave a honest review about a product, because they know that if they start leaving these 3 or below star rated reviews, the businesses are not going to give them any more deals, because they're going to think that they're a bad reviewer and they're not leaving good reviews for the brands. And so it creates this kind of positive review loop where only positive reviews are left, and it really doesn't encourage honesty in the transaction. And so whatever system you use for reviews, you need to make sure that there's some built-in mechanisms to ensure, or at least encourage, the reviewers to leave honest reviews, and they don't have to fear leaving a low-star review if the product isn't good. And the other thing that you have to think about is how Amazon kind of views this. So what Amazon sees, if they see a product and all these deals were sampled and they're getting 4- and 5-star reviews on the samples, but all the organic sales are getting 1, 2, and 3-star reviews, that's going to kind of raise up a couple flags and say, hey, what's going on? This product is obviously, all these 4- and 5-star reviews aren't legit, and the real experience that buyers are getting is a 1, 2, or 3-star experience. And so they're going to want to, that might be considered manipulation on their behalf. So really important to make sure that you're encouraging honest reviews. So I started thinking about this in terms of SnagShout and how well we do at this, and making sure that people leave honest reviews. And so I checked in on a product that Patrick had launched on SnagShout. Patrick's doing the $25,000 challenge with us, and I was actually happy to see that this product actually has 100 or so reviews, and a lot of them are very good. But I filtered down on the 3-star reviews, and we actually did see from SnagShout these reviews were actually purchased, these products were actually purchased with a discount, and the right here we have this disclaimer that they received the product for a discounted price for honest review, but they were leaving 3-star reviews here, a couple of them, and the product legitimately had a couple problems. The seal wasn't sealing right. It was a type of lid, kind of plastic lid thing, and it wasn't sealing right. And it was really refreshing to see that the SnagShout community was actually leaving their honest opinion on the product, and they weren't just giving a product 4- and 5-star reviews so they could get their next deal. And I believe that's the case because we don't allow the merchants to filter who gets their products. People can just come and pick a product they want and they get it, and we really, really stress being honest. And so that's very good. We really, as a community, it really is important that we focus on generating these honest reviews and honest conversations about our brand, and not trying to do anything that's manipulative, because it'll be bad for everybody. And Amazon's obviously already reflecting that and changing their terms of service. So I encourage everyone to make sure that they're getting honest reviews. So one other thing that we should mention in the updates is a section about sales rank and about offering excessive discounts to inflate your sales rank, right? Or maybe not even excessive discounts. It actually says excessive claim codes, right? And so we've covered having fraudulent orders and trying to boost your sales rank with fraudulent orders, but they also talk about using claim codes and trying to inflate your sales rank like that if your only intention in offering claim codes is to inflate your sales rank. And there's two things that we should mention there. One is, what is Amazon really talking about that? What does it mean to inflate your sales rank? Why do people do this? And then also, what are they talking about when it comes to claim codes? So think about this. Let's say you're launching a belt and you're in the clothing category and you've identified your competition and they're getting, let's say, 1,500 sales rank on average for their products. And so you want to create a campaign and you want to start competing with them, and you launch your deal on some type of promo code blast site or whatever, and your sales rank blast up to 1 in clothing, when really it doesn't have any business being there. It's launched above Tommy Hilfiger and Levi's and all these name brands and everything else. A much more conservative approach would actually be to launch your product and use a slower method of bringing in sales. So not trying to do 1,000 in one day or whatever, but understanding that your competition that's ranked at 1,500 is probably making around 30 sales or so a day. So you're going to use some type of deal site to get your some sales that way, and then also couple that with Amazon sponsored product ads and start to generate those sales you need to create the sales velocity to start to rank against your competition. And that's a much more effective strategy, and it's actually better from a business standpoint, and it also won't be seen as manipulative. And also, though, I want to kind of speculate a little bit on the use of the word claim codes and what Amazon's really referring there. And so everyone kind of assumed that claim codes are talking about promo codes and one-time use promo codes and discount codes and everything. But I actually was taking a look, and on Amazon, there's actually a type of claim code that you can use to buy a gift card, right? So on Amazon, you can actually purchase a gift card for somebody, and you can actually purchase them in bulk. So if you want to buy, if a business wants to buy 1,000 gift cards, you can do that, and they give you these codes, and they're similar to one-time use promo codes, and they actually use the same language, but they're different. And what they actually call them claim codes. And what you can do with a claim code is a business could buy 1,000 claim codes and then distribute it to buyers and say, hey, go buy my product with these claim codes, and you're basically pre-purchasing the product for them. And I actually think they're really talking about that and trying to inflate your sales rank using those types of claim codes more than they are discounting your product, because of course people are going to run promotions and couponing. I mean, that's why they made the one-time use promo code system, but it makes sense that it could be kind of a misuse of their system by basically making these fake orders, and that's what they're talking about with having people kind of fake buy your product in with these claim codes, because they're not spending any money at all. They're literally just applying a gift card at checkout to purchase your product. So I actually think that's what they're talking about there, not necessarily the use of one-time use promo codes, although we should try to avoid being manipulative using one-time use promo codes and try to use more reasonable tactics and not try to blast our site with 1,000 units a day or something like that. So I'm going to turn the time over to Brandon and let him talk a little bit about super URLs.
Thanks, Paul. I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about super URLs. We believe that part of the changes in the Amazon terms of service may be targeting these and how people are using them to direct traffic over to Amazon. Now, in order to understand a little bit of how they work, I'm going to get a little bit technical and talk about how they work and how we believe Amazon's system works. So what I've done on this slide is I've actually just gone to Amazon.com. I searched for the word hacking, which came up with a bunch of books, and I clicked on the second item down, which is the book that you see on the frame here. And then up at the top here, you can see sort of the part of the URL I blow up that shows the end of that URL. You can see obviously at the end of that the word hacking on the end of there that sort of describes, or you can see how that search term is getting passed through onto Amazon, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into all those specific terms that are shown there. So this breaks down some of those parameters that are in the URL. You'll see the first one on there says ref SR12. So specifically in that one, the number 2 and also the number 2 on the third item there, the SR8-2. The number 2 in both of those refers to the second position in the search results. So if you were to click the third position down, it'd have a number 3 there at the end of those. So those are pretty easy to identify. The QID parameter is an interesting one. It's actually just a Unix timestamp. That's actually the number of seconds that have elapsed since January 1st, 1970. So if you were to click the URL, if you were to perform the search once and click on one of the results, and then do the same thing 10 seconds later, you'd see that QID parameter had added 10 to that number. So it's just a way of Amazon noticing that those are unique. And then finally, the keywords equals hacking is obviously the keyword that was searched on the preceding search page, passed through to the next page. So is what super URLs do is they actually dynamically generate a URL that contains all these parameters. So when you might visit a super URL that is usually a shortened sort of URL, when the user visits it, it goes to the redirection service. The redirection service will then substitute in and put the correct QID for the current timestamp. It'll put in the current search position of the item and the keywords that the seller has told it to use, and then redirect that traffic over to Amazon as sort of kind of a way of tricking Amazon into thinking that the user had previously searched for the word hacking and clicked on this item. Now, the reason that's kind of effective for Amazon is that in order for their search algorithm to work and to provide really good results, one of the things we believe they do is that they keep track of the keywords that were searched for everything that somebody had purchased on Amazon. So I've got on the screen here an example of a few items that somebody may have purchased or that multiple people would have purchased using the keyword water bottle. So this is obviously fictitious data, and Amazon would have servers and database tables that are much larger and bigger than this that contain like every item that's purchased on Amazon. But sort of just kind of narrow it down so we can understand how that might work. So whenever somebody purchases on Amazon, I can imagine they've probably put a row into a table like this that contains, among other things, the ASIN of the product that was purchased, the keywords that were searched for that product that was purchased, the timestamp the product occurred. Of course, they're going to have things like the seller that sold it and the price they paid and whatever, and also that QID field that we saw that was passed from the previous page. So if people are buying the water bottles over and over, you can see in the example here I've got 5 sort of sales, 4 sales for that ASIN that ends in 222, and then a sale for the one that ends in 777, a bunch more sales for the ASIN that ends in 222, and then kind of repeating back and forth a little bit. So presume Amazon's got a database table of all the products that are sold on Amazon and what keywords were used to search for those. They can then do a query against this table. Whenever somebody searches for the term water bottle on Amazon, they can look in their table and say, hey, what have people previously purchased when buying the water bottle? They'd run a query similar to the one that I have there. And then from that, they'd be able to see that during this time frame, the ASIN that ends in 222 was purchased 10 times. And the ASIN that ends in 777 would have been purchased twice. Therefore, the ASIN that ends in 222 should probably be ranked a little bit higher in search results. So the super URL is basically a trick to try and get Amazon to put this stuff into their database table, even though the user didn't actually search for it, in an attempt to make their product appear that is people have searched for it and bought that product more frequently. Now, this is actually something that's actually pretty trivial for Amazon to fix. Maybe not trivial, but not too terribly complicated for them to fix. The main thing they have to do is just check to ensure that QID parameter that is passed through on the sale is a search that actually occurred. That's probably the easiest way they have of doing that. If they just double check, one database table against the other, they can find the sales that occurred without an actual search occurring. Should be a pretty good indication of people who have been using this sort of trick. There's other ways for them to do that. They could add an extra column on the table that includes like discount amounts, Amazon is very much at the forefront of all this machine learning and fraud detection algorithms. They could make way more complicated ways to sort of go in and look at this. But the bottom line is it's not too hard for them. They've got all the data they need to go through and determine who have been using tactics like this.
So we discontinued the super URL generation in SnagShout earlier this week after looking over the terms of service in an effort to stay as compliant as possible with Amazon's terms of service and really to send a message to everyone in the community and to Amazon that we want to be compliant and that we want to work with Amazon and do the right thing and not try to trick their system or do anything, but really to help people engineer their success and to do well, and we believe that that's really important. And I actually started following a campaign that Patrick, doing the $25,000 challenge, one that he had just launched. And when we discontinued the super URL, he was on the 6th page of the search results. And then yesterday when I checked his product, he had made to page 3, and now he's on page 2. And he's doing these tactics that we're talking about, which is, identifying his competition, running a more reasonable amount of sales per day. I think he's doing 20 or so a day, and it's working well for him, and he's moving up into the search results. And so regardless of how well super URLs work or do not work, it's very easy to be successful and gain the position that you need to gain on Amazon. So just to recap what we've talked about so far and then open us up to some questions, the key is to avoid being manipulative. That's how we feel. Really keep your business on the up and up. So the first thing to understand is understand the tools you're using, how they work, and the system that you're working with, and make your own determination as to how risky or unrisky it is, and make sure that you understand that some things are more risky and more in the gray or unendorsed methods, and some of them are more legitimate. The second thing is to ensure that if you are doing any type of promotions, that your organic ratings from your reviews are similar to the star ratings that you're getting from your discounted services. Because if they're not, then that can look manipulative on Amazon's eyes. We also encourage you to be wary of any type of service or scheme or gimmick or whatever that's only job is to inflate sales rank. We encourage you to structure your campaigns so that they'll run over weeks, not just days, to generate the sales velocity that you need, and also to take an advantage of using organic sales, sponsored product ads, and discounts to make a holistic strategy to promote your brand. And we are also encouraging the discontinued use of all super URLs, including our own system, SearchRank. You can still use it to track products rank, and we understand that will cost us revenue, but in the long run, we think that it's important for the success of the merchants that we work with to issue that warning, and we'll probably eventually deprecate that product over time as well, and remove that functionality and take it out of our suite as far as super URL generation goes. But that's our philosophy and what we believe, and we open it up for you guys to ask questions. We hope that you have some. We'd love to answer things, and we appreciate your time.
All right, great. I think Jeff has been fielding or sort of collecting questions. Are you still there, Jeff, or do you just want us to go off of our chat? Great.
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions, so I'll throw them out at you and try to get as many of these addressed as we can. A question that kind of came up a couple of times was related to, okay, so if SnagShout is no longer using a super URL, what type of URL is SnagShout using? How will a customer be directed to Amazon?
So I think from a technical perspective, we just put in www.amazon.com/dp/theasin. So that's sort of a very generic formula to get to an Amazon product page. We've sort of, as we turn stuff off, I think that's kind of the quick solution we came to, and we might add a couple parameters on there that are not relevant to the search thing, but it's just a very generic page that goes to the Amazon product detail page without any extra parameters in it.
You can still add your merchant ID and Snagshout, so if there's multiple people selling your product, then you can put your merchant ID in there so you're the only seller. That's totally legitimate and fine as well.
Yep. So not a fancy page, but we just generate them on the fly with a sort of a generic page.
Okay, so Brandon, there's a follow-up technical question with regards to the super URLs, and I never pronounced this word right, so I'll just butcher myself on tape. The question is with regards to canonical URLs.
Canonical.
And are those considered manipulation if they are adding keywords onto those?
So I think the question on that one, the canonical URL is probably one, I guess I would consider that to be the URL that has the SEO sort of keywords in the title. And I would use, I think any link you use that does not dynamically change that QID parameter and the SR parameters and all those other things, any link you use that does not dynamically change those, I think will be fine. So if you just visit Amazon and copy the URL and use that, that'll be fine as well. Any of those I think are not going to be affected, and those are all, I mean, you got to think Amazon, people have been linking to their Amazon product page for years, and so those will continue to work, and Amazon can't just like suddenly make all those not work or invalidate them.
So that was another question that was asked, Brandon. Is a super URL really a manipulation, or is it really any different than just copying the URL directly from Amazon?
Okay, so this is actually a really good question. I mean, obviously the way we've been generating a super URL is because we visited and walked to the site and saw how it worked. Let me actually go back on my slides here. I'm going to take you back a couple slides to this page, right? So, you know, I got to this page and I generated this, what you could call a super URL by visiting Amazon and just walking through it as a shopper. What you'll see in here, though, is that the kind of thing that makes this special is that QID parameter in there. Essentially, what the QID parameter in there means is if you copied this URL and you used it on your own website or anywhere else, that QID parameter is going to stay the same. And Amazon, my belief is, you know, if I was Amazon, I'd engineer it this way. That's why the QID parameter is one of the columns on this table here. Is if that QID parameter is used over and over and over and over again, it only sort of counts as a vote for that keyword once. And I kind of implied that with my query here, but you have to be kind of technical to read that. If you actually counted the number of times water bottle was used in there, I think it's actually 12 or 13 times. But you can see the QID parameter I used a couple times. So the 1111 all ones parameter is used a couple times. The one with all sevens is used a couple times. And so in the query that Amazon would do on this, they're looking for distinct or unique QID parameters. So it is true that the URL you pull out of that this URL is sort of like a super URL. The thing that a super URL does that's unique is it changes that every time you visit the URL. So the super URLs, you will have like some kind of a shortened URL that you use to get to this page. And the shortened URL is simply a link to the redirection service, and then the service actually changes that QID parameter and the other parameters on there every time you visit it, and that's what makes a super URL is the fact that it changes and it's dynamic. It changes every time somebody visits it. It tricks Amazon's system into thinking those were separate searches where in fact they were not. Does that answer the question well, Jeff?
I think that was a pretty good description, and people might have some additional follow-up questions, so I'll keep an eye on it. I think essentially what you're saying is if you're going to continue to use a super URL, understand how that super URL is being used, and if it's dynamically changing the search rank and the QID, basically the super URL program is manipulating the Amazon algorithm, trying to trick it into believing that an actual search occurred when it didn't.
Yeah, I think that's a good restatement.
Okay, so if you have further questions on that, please let us know. So one of the questions that was asked by the audience was, if we made a change, if a seller makes a change today, and any of it says, do you think if a seller makes a change as of today, any use of review clubs prior will still be a problem? So if they were using something that had a super URL and they stopped using it, or they were working with a review club that was manipulating, but now they changed, do you think they'll have a problem?
I mean, of course, nobody knows exactly how Amazon plans to enforce these changes in every way. I think they probably have some sophisticated or primitive tools that they're working on right now to detect different types of manipulation. So we've already seen a whole big shakedown in reviews being removed, and so they're already looking at things like that. They have these complicated machine learning algorithms that will just go and wipe out reviews on a page where they look manipulative in general, and they don't even notify you about that. But if they continue, I mean, the way I would look at it is if Amazon continues to see a pattern of a certain product from a certain seller or whatever, they're going to go and give you a policy violation if they continue to see this behavior, and maybe suspend your account as well. And they're also, they might just wipe out a listing, like, oh, all these sales were promoted and they got all these 5-star reviews and they spiked their sales rank through the roof, and et cetera, et cetera. And they'll just say, okay, we're gonna block this listing and send you a policy violation for it. So I think those are the types of things. But I think that the just like they said, the behavior has to be excessive, and it has to be manipulative. And so if stuff that's in the past, we'll see what happens. I imagine that they're going to do a lot of things to clean up their catalog soon, and so it's really important to make sure that the strategies and tactics they're using are on the up and up and that are not manipulative, and that's how we should proceed.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that too. Is usually as part of a policy violation or even an account suspension, they give you an opportunity to sort of explain what happened and how you will change it going forward. So I think, unless there was like a really blatant violation of something that was really bad in the past, I don't think of them as truly forgiving people. But as long as you have a good plan of action moving forward, and you can sort of state what happened and state a clear plan of action to not do that going forward, a lot of times those result in account reinstatements. Sometimes it takes a while, but it usually does happen.
Great. I have 2 questions. I'm going to kind of blend them together here because they kind of tie in with one another. One is about the professional reviewers at Amazon, if this will have any effect with professional reviewers at Amazon. And then the other kind of related question is, what does Snagshout do to pre-qualify reviewers so that sellers get quality reviews?
Okay, so as far as professional reviewers and what kind of effect this is going to have on them, I think professional reviewers will still continue to get lots of opportunities to sample products. Typically, professional reviewers are fairly honest in their reviews, and the trick is that they might not get as many because it's all about being excessive in that. And so if we're pre-qualifying all these professional reviewers and they always leave 4- and 5-star reviews, et cetera, then they might not get as many offers in that type of way. As far as what Snagshout's doing to qualify reviewers, we don't do a whole lot to make sure that the quality or the content of a review is amazing just yet. What we really try to do is encourage honesty and transparency in the reviewing process. But we're actually about to release some updates, hopefully next week actually, that we're going to be using our own type of machine learning algorithms and processes to really start to build our own tiering system, not based on the review rating, but the quality of the reviewer, and the helpfulness and these other things, so that way we can actually businesses can identify those people, but they'll do it in an anonymous way, and we'll really start to be able to target reviewers that are trustworthy. This is actually some things that we've been working on for a long time in anticipation of what is happening right now, and we've always known that this type of thing was going to happen as we've seen all these different techniques start to come out. And so be looking for those types of things very soon coming from us, and they should be very, very powerful and allow you to really encourage those great reviews. We feel like everybody kind of has an opinion, and they all deserve their voice, but we also understand that if you're offering a really deep discount, you might want to target some of those people that really have great content. But we don't want to target those people based on the rating that we're going to give. We want to target those people based on their genuine opinion and their ability to describe your product for better or for worse.
Great, thank you. So do you guys believe that an Amazon algorithm change is coming?
I believe Amazon changes their algorithm all the time, so I would say yes, but I would say kind of specifically, I mean, there's a couple of things that, if I was in charge of Amazon and running this, there's a couple of like algorithmic kind of things I would do to their search algorithm that could, solve some of these problems. So I mean, they need to decide how much effort they want to throw at it, because some of those things are fairly expensive, even in terms of computing or programming time. But to say, I guess Amazon's always tweaking their algorithm, just like Google's always tweaking their algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about Amazon's algorithm, like we talk about this in Amazon Search Secrets, but Amazon has an entirely separate company, A9, in Silicon Valley, with a bunch of PhDs and genius data scientists and artificial intelligence experts, and they work every day to tweak and make their algorithm better. So Amazon is basically kind of where Google was a long time ago, and they make updates and they change things, and Google releases updates, and everybody was paying for backlinks, and all of a sudden their sites got blacklisted or something like that, and they had to go and disavow backlinks and do all those things, and so things are going to change. Amazon's algorithm is going to get updated. It's going to get more sophisticated. We still believe that sales are the biggest indicator of success on Amazon, just like backlinks are still the biggest indicator of success on Google. So
here's a good question. How does Amazon know the difference between an organic review and a sampled review, or a review that was from somebody who was sent a product?
Well, Amazon's got all that data, so the transaction was conducted on Amazon, the review was left on Amazon, so it's just a matter of them trying to match up the buyer that left it with what they paid for it. So I mean, if you think about think about like the Amazon, so the Amazon verified purchase badge that's on there right now. Whenever they show that badge, that means they've matched up that review to a particular sale in that person's transaction history. So all they need to do is an additional step on that is go back in the transaction history and see if they paid full price for the item or not. So it's fairly easy for them to sort of do that algorithmically.
Right now, Amazon requires that you put this product was purchased at a discount or for free or whatever. If you're a Vine reviewer, that happens automatically. They put that in there for you. They could actually start to add that disclaimer, on the review and say this review. I don't think Amazon's necessarily concerned with obviously you're still allowed and even encouraged to give away products at a discount to get reviews, but they're ranking things differently, right? So they're showing reviews that were verified reviews are now obviously at the top of the results, as they should be in the review results, and they'll do different things to rank those reviews differently and stuff like that. And so that's gonna evolve and change over time as things go on.
Great. We've got quite a few questions left, so I'm going to ask you guys to try to keep these answers pretty brief, unless it's a topic we haven't touched on yet. I want to try to get through everyone's questions. A question was asked, if I'm giving 20 free products away and I'm selling another 20 products away during a launch, isn't that considered ranking manipulation?
So I think this goes back to I think everyone's trying to look at a number and they want to see a specific. Everyone wants to know, okay, can I do 100? Can I do 20? Can I do 1,000? Like, what is it? And we all want to know what that is. And I think what Amazon's going to do is look at things that seem manipulative as a whole and things that seem out of place as a whole and make their decisions there. And honestly, we're not going to know what the exact answers of those are until they start trying to enforce some of these things and issuing policy violations. I don't foresee that as an issue. My opinion and my interpretation of the ruling is if we try to do 1,000 or spike all the way to the top page of results onto the top end of category, I think that's going to be considered manipulative. And in the same way with trying to manipulate your actual star rating as well, I consider that to be somewhat manipulative. There's always going to be people using deals like slick deals and putting their coupons out there and running promotions and things like that. That's product marketing. That's what businesses do in retail, right? So you go to Kroger and you got coupons there, and they're using couponing to reach their hurdle rates in retail, and that's a common practice, and it's going to stick around. But if it's done in a manipulative way, if you feel kind of dirty about what you're doing, then you might want to reconsider.
This isn't really on the topic of what we discussed, but I think it's important. I think it's a pretty simple answer. What about using HTML code for the product description and bullet points?
I think Amazon's got some pretty specific tags that they recommend for that. In general, it's like bolds and italics and paragraphs. Anything more than that is kind of they tend to block those. There's been some attempts to add stuff to them and get around that, and they almost always, every one of them I've seen has resulted in a few days later the extra stuff getting stripped out. So
read the style guides for your category and act accordingly.
Great. So somebody said that they believe that the word discount was removed from the terms of service. It used to say free or discounted products. Now it says just free products. Do you have a comment about that? Is Amazon saying they don't want you to discount products anymore?
No, that's never been in there. So it was not a subtraction from the thing.
There's another page somewhere else that actually does say discounts, but I can't remember where it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, the specific page, I looked through that particular page in detail from a copy that I had from like a year ago, and I also went back through archive.org and looked at several copies of it, and I pretty much know every quotation mark and colon that was moved, and there was no words removed.
He actually ran a diff using version control type system to see what's changed. So.
If a user does 20 sales, 20 promotional sales without using a super URL, will it increase the ranking, or will it help with a keyword as well?
So Patrick's doing this right now with the product that he's just launching. He's not using any super URLs, running campaign on Snackshot, doing 20 per day, and he has one keyword that he wants to rank for that I know of, and it went from page 6 to page 3 to page 2 without a super URL. Seems to be working fairly well.
Yeah, you got to figure that the super URL is one component in several different components of the Amazon search algorithm. So it gave you like a sort of an extra boost that we may not see the extra boost now, but it is naturally selling more, so that does still help.
Yeah,
okay. I feel like we're still getting this question, so I just want to address it one more time, and it just might have been an old question. The question is, if I go to Amazon, search for my products using the keyword, click on the URL to copy it, send it to my friend, isn't that considered a super URL? And I think we covered that in pretty good detail. If the QID and the search rank do not change, Amazon is not going to give you credit for each sale that comes to it, so it is not the same as a super URL. A super URL is actually updating those pieces each time you hit them to basically trick Amazon into believing that those are individual searches, not all from the same URL.
You got it right.
That's correct. So, so the super URL would not be the resulting URL that you end up on Amazon with. It would be the shorter version. So if you were using SearchRank, it would be something like I can't remember what domain we're using. That's something.com/7 characters. That would be like the super URL. And every time you visit that, it's going to generate a new Amazon URL that changes those QID parameters and the other parameters. So
And if you're not,
that sort of thing.
I'll make this offer. My customer service team probably won't like it. If you're not sure, send us your super URL and we'll look at it and we'll tell you where we feel there's an issue with it. And then you can bring that back to the company that you're working with and let them give you your opinion. You can then send that to Amazon and ask them their opinion based off of our information and their information. And then you can make your own qualified decision.
Yeah, let me add out to that though. The super URL does not begin with www.amazon.com. That's the result of the super URL. It redirects you there.
So I want to say something else too. So if anyone's familiar with a Bitly type service, that's what these super URLs are. They're like a Bitly, and you're saying, okay, I want you to go here, but when you click this, I'm actually going to add. We're going to go to this thing instead. And that's what a super URL is. And what they're doing is they're adding these parameters and updating them. Now, I also want to say that you can actually still use redirection services and track your clicks and all that stuff with Amazon. What you can't do is have, or what we believe you shouldn't do, shall I say, is you should not have things where your QID is dynamically updating and your search rank, the SR numbers or whatever, are dynamically updating in the system. Because what that does is it's an intentional trick to try to manipulate Amazon's system into saying, hey, this is an organic search that just happened on Amazon. We're trying to make this look organic. We're trying to manipulate. And so, you know, we're going to continue to do research on these types of topics. I feel really strongly that super URLs are not needed at all to gain position. We're proving that right now with the $25,000 challenge. We'll publish more research on that right now, and I just don't, regardless of where Amazon's gonna land on these things, it's not worth it for your business to do things that are manipulative. I mean, it's a hack. Like, let's be honest, it is, and let's move beyond hacks. We can build businesses without trying to hack things together.
Yeah, Jeff, I'll do a blog post on that too. Try to get a blog post done over the weekend, that maybe a blog post video combination that kind of explains that and gives some very concrete examples.
Okay, awesome. Is there a better way to do giveaways? So this is kind of a two-part question. I'm blending. Is there a better way to do giveaways without using discount codes, like fulfilling products to reviewers for free via an API? And then the other part of that question is, do you think that using review clubs such as Snagshout are a manipulation, or if used conservatively and honestly are not a violation?
So as far as a better way to do giveaways, some alternatives, if you want, is to not necessarily make it a one-for-one, review for or product for review. You can just discount your product a lot on Amazon and see what happens. You're not generating the reviews, and you're also not controlling your inventory levels. So if you're not using one-time use promo codes and you slam a general use promo code out there and it gets out everywhere, then you're going to see a lot of inventory depletion. You can also just discount your price in Amazon, but once again, you have no control over the amount you give away, and that can be scary. We don't see giving away products and as in Snagshout as a violations of Amazon's terms of service. We haven't had a single one of our users come to us yet with any type of policy violation. We don't consider it manipulative at all. What we do think is that if you use our platform incorrectly, so Snagshout has a way to put in like daily limits and stuff like that. And so if you try to run 1,000 deals a day through Snagshout on a single product, then that's probably not a wise idea.
Yeah, the thing I'll add to that too, Jeff, is that this is not a new concept in retail. This is a concept that has existed for generations in brick and mortar retail. It's called coupons. It's just kind of a social way to share coupons, but it's not something that is a hack in any way, shape, or form. Amazon added one-time use promo codes. So it was about February, I think they added those. So Amazon has worked and done work to add the ability to use these one-time use coupons. So the coupon portion of this, I don't believe in any way, shape, or form is a hack, but it can be used in a way like these inflating sales rank and inflating the search rank positions, I think, are what Amazon sees as hacky about it.
Yeah, and manipulating your review rating. So if you have a we said time and time again, if you have a 2 or 3 star product from organic sales and you're using a review club where you're approving all the people and they're leaving you 4 and 5 star reviews, yes, that is manipulative. But if you're doing things in a more natural way and in a more way that's encouraging people to be honest, we don't consider that manipulative at all.
Great. I have another two-part question. Trying to knock these out here. How does SnagShout recruit reviewers? And then if I'm interested in doing Vine, do you know how much it costs or how to get recruited into that?
So SnagShout recruits reviewers via our national campaign. So we were on Fox News this morning, nationally. We've been on CNN Money, featured on Clark Howard. We have an amazing PR team. We do a whole lot of social media. We're not going after professional reviewers. We're going after average everyday shoppers and trying to educate them on how to just be more social in their shopping experience. So that's kind of how we get our people. We spend a great deal of time, energy, and effort in doing that. And as far as Vine goes, I don't know the exact numbers.
I've actually talked to some people about Vine before. So generally, to be invited as a Vine, to have your product to have your product reviewed by Vine reviewers, you generally have to be selling to Amazon as a first-party seller. So you are selling to Amazon Retail, and then Amazon Retail recruits the Vine reviewers to do it. They charge you as a merchant a $2,500 fee. The last one I saw was a $2,500 fee in addition to the free product in order to get it into the hands of Vine reviewers. So SnagShout's kind of a way to just democratize that and make it so any seller can do that rather than having to be an Amazon first-party seller.
Great, thank you. Knocking these out. So I know we're getting up to the top of the hour, and there are a couple more questions in the queue. So if anybody needs to leave, we welcome you to, but we're going to try to answer the rest of these questions. Has Amazon specifically confirmed to Seller Labs that the SnagShout service is not a violation of the Amazon Terms of Service?
No. We've had discussions with some people at Amazon, but nobody in a authoritative position that would say one way or the other. That's just not Amazon's way of doing things. So Amazon's very, very slippery, and whenever you ask them specific questions, they give you very vague answers.
I'll add to that a little bit, Brandon. As sellers, if you guys have ever asked Amazon a question and gotten a very vague answer, that's how they treat their companies like us in the same way. So I can tell you that we're pretty confident that they're aware of SnagShout. We haven't tried to hide it from them in any way. And from the beginning, when we created SnagShout, our whole goal in creating SnagShout was that if Amazon ever signed up for our service as a seller or as a shopper, would they feel that we were in violation of their terms of service? A lot of the services out there hide one side or the other side of their business. We make both sides of our business completely open. And by doing so, we feel, and that's why we make changes when Amazon makes changes to their terms of service. I'm going to ask this question here. So he kept saying, you keep using the word trick. Does trick mean manipulation?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say as a very super high level, anything, if you're doing anything with the intent, and the word intent was definitely added to the terms of service, to alter the Amazon algorithm, you're you're tricking or you're manipulating the system. Okay, so Jill still has this question, so let's just ask it. Manipulation of sales rank. If she says we gave away 25 units a day for say 3 weeks, so a total of 525 units. Is 525 units in total considered manipulation of sales rank?
I think it depends. I don't think it does. I think what my personal interpretation on reading that is basically if you're trying to spike, if all you're doing is giving away products to spike your sales rank into the leaderboard in one of the categories, if that's all you're doing is saying I'm going to give away 1,000 products in a short amount of time so I can get in the top 100 products in this category or get some type of badge on my thing, and it's clear that you're doing that, then that may be considered a violation of the terms of service. That's why I showed this image right here. If your goal is to get on that page, then that is sales rank manipulation. That's the way I read it. We will know a lot more if Amazon starts issuing policy warnings. I think that this is a lot. You should be a lot less concerned about this and a lot more concerned about super URLs and about manipulating your actual star ranking on your product, right? If you have a 2-star product but you're manipulating it to a 4-star product because you're sampling, I think that's more concerning and more manipulative than these types of things. But yeah, don't just be reasonable. 25 a day. I think you'll be fine. We're doing that right now. Haven't seen any problems.
So a question was just asked, and I'll answer it because it's a pretty simple one. The question was asked: do you believe Amazon will ever take out the requirement for people to disclose that they got the product for review?
No, that's actually a requirement from the Federal Trade Commission.
Right. So that is not an Amazon requirement, but a Federal Trade Commission.
Although Amazon might start adding that automatically.
So a question came in about project hijackers, and with regards to reviewers snagging your product and then trying to resell them against you.
People purchasing your product and trying to resell against you.
Basically, like you're selling your own product, you have nobody selling against you, you put it on a review site, and all of a sudden somebody gets a hold of 10 of them and they're now selling that product against you.
So yeah, I mean that's supposedly against the Snapshot terms of service. It's going to happen. People are going to do that. The goal is to have such a high velocity of sales right on your thing where you're selling 30, 40 a day that if someone gets a hold of a few products and they try to resell it, they run through their inventory and that's it. They're done. If we find that stuff out on our system, we ban them, and we never let them use it again because that's completely and totally against our terms of service, and it's not an ethical thing to do. Okay. They're supposed to be giving the product to review, not to resell.
I've got 2 more questions, and then we can wrap up. On the seller prohibitive activity page, they only say to give free products to exchange for unbiased reviews. Are we allowed to give discounted products in exchange for an unbiased review?
I believe that you can give discounted products in exchange for an unbiased review. I don't have the page off the top of my head, but there is another page that actually says free and discounted products somewhere else on Amazon. We haven't seen any issues with that at all.
Great. So just give me one quick second here, make sure I got to all of these. So I will state that if we did not get to your question, you can always email us at support@sellerlabs.com. We will have at least a portion of this webinar available for replay. I lost the first part of it, but maybe I'll make Brandon and Paul re-record it. And I definitely have all of the Q&A, which we really appreciate and we thank you guys for.